These Premier 1 highlights are brought to you in association with Ayr Rugby Club.
We're at Millbrae this afternoon for the Premier 1 clash between Ayr and Hawick. Both sides are desperate for the points. Ayr are second in the league and they want the points to stay in contention for the title. Hawick are second bottom of the table and they want the points to avoid relegation, something that's never happened to the Mansfield club since the leagues were formed all those years ago. The weather's been pretty fierce here in Ayr. I would expect nothing less on the pitch this afternoon.
With the wind behind them, Hawick getting the ball downfield but not finding touch, picked up by Ayr. Young Pat MacArthur taking play straight back to the men in green. Damien Kelly off in a typical surging, thumping charge, taking 4 or 5 tacklers with him. AJ McFarlane whipping the ball out. McCallum to Nick Lavelle. And then terrific burst there by Paul Buck, pulled down by Hawick hooker Hugh Scammell. And AJ McFarlane working the ball out again, and Nick Lavelle popping the ball down into the corner. And Greg Thompson after it, but oh dear, terrific follow up there by Ben Colley. Thompson fumbles, and who's right on the spot for the try? The big man himself, Damien Kelly. Opening try for Ayr after 25 minutes. And 25 minutes when Hawick had 1 or 2 chances, as had Ayr, but only 1 score on the board. And it was on the half-hour mark before Hawick troubled the scorer with that penalty by Rory Hutton. But it was his first success from 3 attempts, and that could prove costly as the game moved towards half-time. Glenn Tippett trying to get away from Kevin Reid, diving round the base of the scrum there. Ball worked out to Nick Lavelle. Ben Colley crossing, of course it was crossing, says Centre Alec Time. Referee Andy Ireland agreed with him, and right on the half-time mark, Hutton's kick back off the post. That would have taken Hawick into half-time. 1 point in the lead as it was. Ayr turned round 5-3 ahead, and the gale behind them in the second half.
These Premier 1 highlights are brought to you in association with Ayr Rugby Club. Scottish Rugby Radio is now updated every Monday. Join Stuart Cameron and his guests for the news, match reports and expert comment on the Scottish game. ScottishRugbyRadio.com. Now every Monday.
It might have been only 5-3 at the break, but Ayr showed early in the second half that they'd only been biding their time to make use of the wind and put the pressure on Hawick. And the second half, only a minute old, and Pat MacArthur, who was later to pick up the Man of the Match award, making the hard yards there for Ayr. Hawick offending, and Nick Lavelle stepping up, making no mistake with the penalty to take Ayr into an 8-3 lead. A couple of minutes later, well, you can see how strong that wind was. Graham Hanna, touch judge, can hardly keep his flag up there. Terrific jump by Scott Lyons, the front of the line out. The Ayr surge is on. Fred Stevenson and Greg McLeod doing their best to stop it there, but having to retreat. AJ McFarlane and Scott Lyons directing operations. And finally the ball comes out. Richard McCallum to Nick Lavelle, makes the space for Paul Buck, and Buck surging through there, and he got Ben Colley acting as an auxiliary flanker right on his elbow, driving over. And I think Burke and Colley will claim half shares in that try, with the Hawick defence in complete disarray. with the wind at his back, Lavelle had no problem with the conversion, taking Ayr to 15 points to 3 ahead. Only 5 minutes into the second half. And there's only another 4 minutes gone when they extended that lead. Hooker Hugh Scammell unceremoniously dumped there by the Ayr defenders, knocking on, says Andy Ireland, but all whipped out to Lavelle. Wee show and go by the Ayr centre. Lots of support there. Richard McCallum in, Ewan Logan thundering on, showing a fair bit of pace for the veteran prop there. And the Ireland spotting something a wee bit naughty, giving the penalty to Ayr for Lavelle to make the score 18 points to 3 with half an hour to go. Then there was something for the Hawick faithful to cheer. What a lovely wee shimmy and break there by centre Rory Hutton. His chip ahead was well covered by Ryan Holland, but holding on, said referee Andy Ireland. And Kevin Reid taking the ball quickly, out to Alex Fine. Fine cutting inside, beating 2 or 3 Ayr tackles, finally knocked over by Evan Kello. But when the ball was recycled, Reid out to Hutton, who'd started it all, and the young centre went over for a fine try. Ayr, though, knew that they had the game in the bag at this point. Kevin Reid knocked over by Kello. Gavin Petrie working in there, but the ball turned over by Ayr, worked out to Colley to Paul Burke, and Burke, lovely pass out there to Pierluigi Gentile returning the pass to Burke, and there was no stopping the open side flanker. Oh boy, did he like that one. And that was a terrific piece of support work, and as good a piece of flanker play as you'll see all season. Glenn Tippett keeping the ball under control at the back, takes it himself, and then escapes the clutches of the despairing Xander Bruce to go right in under the post. And that was the bonus clinching try. That was a crucial try for Ayr. Up stepped Lavelle with a conversion, and going into the final 10 minutes, Ayr leading 30 points to 8. Quick tap by AJ McFarlane. He is scragged by Ryan Hush and cohorts, but nevertheless the ball coming back on the Ayr side. Johnny McClung in there, acting as scrum half. Now, out to Lavelle. Lavelle pass, bobbled along there, beautifully picked up off his toes by replacement winger Scott Sampson, and over for the young winger's first try for Ayer's first 15. That'll be a moment that he'll remember. But then came a moment to remember for the crowd. The final moment of the match, and what a superb move. Scott Lyons taking the ball and off on a 15-metre charge round the front of the line out for a try that brought the crowd to their feet, because that capped a magnificent performance by the Ayr skipper. Nick Lavelle's conversion just blown slightly off course. It didn't matter, that was full time. Ayr had beaten Hawick 40 points to 8. Sporting handshake from Jim Hay to their team and Ayr coach Craig Redpath.
It's a great performance today with 40 points in these conditions. The pitch was pretty poor, the weather was pretty miserable, and we scored 6 tries and looked total in control. So I'm absolutely delighted to beat Hawick with 40 points in any shape or form is quite an achievement, especially when they're fighting for their lives.
Indeed, that result means that Hawick are still fighting for their lives at the bottom of Premier 1. Ayr are still second in the table and very much in contention for the Premier title. This is Ron Evans for Scottish Rugby Television at Millbrae.
These Premier 1 highlights are brought to you in association with Ayr Rugby Club.